This is Dear Daughter Season 3. Here we go. So I started this whole project for my daughter Coco. She's 7 now.
Yeah, too close to me.
The other day, I told her and my son that we're going to a planetarium.
Planetarium. I don't think you'll enjoy it, Mom.
Why?
Because it's a bit of grown-up stuff.
She's 7.
You're not a grown-up. Why would you?
I mean, it's a bit of complicating stuff you won't understand.
So we teach him.
It's crazy how fast they grow.
You know what a constellation is? That's what we're technically looking at, Mom.
Watching the growth of this podcast has been very similar to watching a child grow.
What's a constellation?
It's a pattern of stars in the sky that make a picture.
From the very beginning, those first steps and stumbles, all the tears, all the laughs.
He's got a ball!
And before you know it, your baby is known to people from all over the world. Your baby is winning awards and having universally relatable conversations. I'm Namulanta Kombo, and this is my podcast, Dear Daughter. What a journey it's been since 2021, when I entered the BBC World Service International Podcast Competition, and I won. I'm trying to create a handbook to life for my daughter, full of stories and advice to help her navigate her life ahead. And people from all over the world have shared letters with me that they've written to their own daughters, or with advice for daughters everywhere.
Dear daughter.
My dear daughter.
Dear daughter.
To my dearest only daughter.
I am so proud of the podcast and this community that we've built. You should join us. If you've got something you'd like to share with your daughter or with daughters everywhere, write them a letter. You can email it to us on deardaughter@bbc.co.uk or go to our website www.bbcworldservice.com/deardaughter. Or you can now send us a WhatsApp message on +44 800 030 4404. This season, we've got some incredible guests.
That's the moment where I said to myself, I can't do it all. Something has to give. And it's not my children.
It's kind of surreal to go back and remember how difficult I found pregnancy, because now that I have a baby, I'm like, oh, this is way harder than being pregnant.
I just was losing hope, looking at my daughter going, I don't feel like she's going to be safe here.
P.S. Don't listen to your mom. After all, what does she know?
In a couple of episodes, I'll be chatting to someone I've known my whole life. Tell me a bit, or tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, you are my daughter.
I hope so. We hope.
Yeah.
Okay. But first up, in this episode, I'll be talking to someone I feel like I've known my whole life. A celebrity who's also a personal hero of mine.
So we're just going to test some levels.
Okay.
Why don't you tell me what you had for breakfast this morning? I hope it's exciting.
Do you know what? I want to tell you it's exciting. Yesterday was exciting. I had like Turkish eggs with yogurt and pomegranate, and it was that with molasses. It was delicious. This morning, I've had a cup of tea with my protein shake in my tea, which is disgusting.
Her kids are at a different phase in their life to mine. They're already in their teens. She's also noticing her little girl change. And so she's got some advice for me before I get to this stage. Episode 1, Elbows Out. Thank you so much for coming on to Dear Daughter. It's a real treat for me because I'm such a huge fan. All the way from here in Nairobi. My daughter and I watch you. So for the people who might be meeting you for the first time through this podcast, would you mind telling me a bit about yourself, like who you are and what you've been up to for the past 10 years? In a nutshell, if possible.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I'm Nadia Hussain, and I have been very busy. 8 years ago, I went on the Great British Bake Off here in the UK, and I won the show. And since then, I've had a career. I'm a TV chef. I'm a cookbook author. I write fiction. I write non-fiction. I write kids' picture books. A lot of the things that I do kind of are surrounded and are driven by my love for food, but also my love for family, and I'm a huge advocate for mental health.
And you said you're a TV chef, but you're also the chef at home, I assume.
Yes, I do all of the cooking at home because I spend most of my time in the kitchen because I cook for work. So I'm testing recipes or I'm filming things. However, it's good because as my kids have become older, the eldest kind of loves cooking. So he'll occasionally dip in and out of the kitchen and cook. My youngest loves baking, so she loves to bake. My second son, not so much. He doesn't like either or. So he's great at dishes. So, I mean, you've got to have a pot wash and that's absolutely fine. My husband is a terrible cook. Terrible.
How is he not interested though? Because by now he should have picked up a few things.
He uses this example quite a lot. He works in IT and he says, have you picked up anything I've done in the last 18 years of being married? And I was like, no, but IT, I don't know how much of your job is a life skill, whereas my job is a life skill. He's dreadful. One day I left him at home and he attempted to make eggs for himself. And he put some eggs in a pan with some water and left them to boil. He forgot about the eggs and the water evaporated from the pan and the eggs had nowhere to go in the heat. And so they were just bouncing around in the pan and then they exploded and hit the ceiling. And I walked in on him stood on the island, like sort of scraping something off. And I said,
bits of egg.
Yeah. And I said, I don't know what's happened here, but I don't think I want to know. He goes, don't worry about it.
And you've just mentioned you do have 3 kids.
Yeah.
What's that been like?
So I have got 3 teenagers. I've got a 17-year-old, a 16-year-old, and a 13-year-old. And all I'm saying is when they were all under 5, we had tons of fun. It was fun. It was exhausting, but it was so lovely to have 3 children under 5. Fast forward a decade, it's hard work at times because they're all teenagers working out life, working out who they are. The older 2 are boys and the youngest is a girl. And she gives me a run for my money, she does.
I'm just curious, what do they think about you doing what you do, being on TV and being interviewed and stuff like that?
At first, part of them thought it was quite cool to have a mum who was in the public eye. They loved it, and my little girl relished in it. Now, as they're older, they don't appreciate it as much. I think as they're kind of making their way in the world and they're kind of trying to make their own footprint, they don't want to necessarily be known as my children because it just means that they're just my children, and I don't want that for them either. So often I kind of take my cues from them. If they say, you know what, Mum, would you mind if you didn't come to this? Or would you mind if you didn't come out of the car to see me off? And it's, don't get me wrong, as a mum, that's really hard. But I have to also equally respect that this is a career that I've chosen to be a part of. And so I have to step back sometimes, as difficult and as grueling as it is for me as a mum. Sometimes I'm like, that's fine. It hurts. Have a little cry in the car and then let them be on their way.
It's so hard because I'm dropping my 7-year-old at school now, and she, and by no means does anyone recognize me, but she just doesn't want to be seen with me, walking her to class anymore. She's just like, Mom, just stay in the car. And I'm just like, why? I won't see you all day. And she's just like, stop.
That's really tough. I mean, there's that when they stop holding your hand. All of that is a part of parenting that nobody really ever tells you about.
But you know what she said to me when I asked her? She said, I can do it. She didn't say I embarrass her.
Oh, okay.
And it made me think, because my assumption was that she doesn't want to be seen with me.
Yeah.
But for her, she was just saying, I'm a big girl now. I can do this on my own. And I should be proud of that, actually. I should be proud that, the little fears that she had when she was 6 are falling away, and she feels like she can, do the long walk to the classroom now on her own. Speaking about your one daughter, you've written her this letter.
Yes.
Which I would love to hear. If you could go ahead and read it for us, and then we can chat a bit more after.
Absolutely. Let's get this up. To my dearest only daughter, this is your Ma. Though when I speak, I know you do not listen, not really. You shrug, you dismiss, you reel in disgust as I suggest that I may know better. You look at me and all you see is your mother, the woman, the person you have known your whole life. You see what is stood in front of you. Though often bedraggled, I am here. I am your mother. That is all you see, not the person that came before her. Let me tell you a little bit about that little girl. That girl, well, she was nothing like your mother. This girl, she was wild. She had great thoughts and even greater dreams. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind. She spoke about how she felt. She spoke about change. She preached about fairness. Even at her tender age, she knew where she wanted to be, despite the blockades that life had in store for her. Sometimes I daydream and wonder where that little girl went. How did she disappear out of plain sight so fast? Then I look at you and realize you are that little girl. Same, but entirely different. Fierce, bold, and bright like your mother before you. This is your Ma. Though even when I speak, I know you do not listen. Just know that the little girl inside me that I lost is holding your hand, and we won't lose another little girl ever again. Let your fire always be fierce. May your purpose guide you. Be the brightest shining light.
Thank you. That's amazing. I do have to ask, was there a point that your daughter was listening? Has it just begun, or have you been in this phase for a while?
She's a teenager, and it's to be expected. Yeah. And that's kind of everyone. I mean, it's very easy just to say blanket, she's a teenager. The eye rolls are out of this world. Honestly, if you see her eye roll, it's unreal. I'm like, I see you. I see you eye rolling. But she is brilliant. Like, she is so smart, and she's so conscientious. She's got this kindness about her. She doesn't listen, but I know she does.
Is she not listening to the big things and the small things? Or
I think...
Does she not think you have any... You haven't lived a life, Mum. You have no idea what it's like to be my age.
Yes, we do get a lot of that kind of like, but you won't understand, Mum, but you won't get it. Mm. And actually for a long time, I kind of rebelled a little bit myself. And I said, of course I get it. I was a teenager once, but their world is different to ours. So...
Completely.
Whilst I think I understand, there's a huge bit of me that doesn't. So rather than constantly telling her that I get it, I always ask her, so help me to understand your world. The most important thing for me has been to create the safest world here, because I can't control what happens out there, but I can create a really safe, loving, warm home here. And so I always ask her, are you happy at home? She said, I love home. She said, home's my favorite place. And so for me is job done as a parent, as a mother.
Yeah. Has it been difficult to create that space?
Yes, it definitely has been difficult, because when you've got 3 children in such quick succession, you're dealing with 3 children who are very different. And I've really had to think about how I parent as well, because I have been the parent who's, when they've done something, I'm like, you know what, actually, I don't want to talk to you for 2 days, or I don't want to deal with this situation. Not only have the children had to work on how they behave, I've had to also work on my parenting style.
And do you remember being the same way with your own mum, you know, not listening or not thinking that she has any idea about what life for you was? Like at
Absolutely.
That age.
I mean, I grew up in an immigrant household. My mum didn't speak English. You know, they came over to this country, so they were kind of all trying to work it out themselves. I mean, their struggles were very different to mine. Did I appreciate that as a child? Absolutely not. I didn't think for a second that my mum would have had a life before me or would have had dreams before me. Didn't think that for a second. Do I think that now? Totally. You know, now when I look back at my behaviour, I think I could have been a bit more understanding. But they were a different breed of mothers, I think, because they were immigrants. They had an attitude of, you know, you carry on no matter what happens. Their purpose was to survive. And it probably helped her, because my mum didn't give hugs, she didn't give kisses, she didn't ask you how you felt, none of that. It was very much kind of, you've eaten, you know, she did her job, and that was it.
You know, some of the things that you say, just looking at her differently, did that come about once you became a mum? Because I remember for a long time, my mum was just this monolith. She was just mum. I honestly, I didn't think about her dreams or what she wanted for herself that much. She was just mum who was there when I needed her.
Yeah.
And then once I became a mum myself, especially a mum to a daughter, I completely changed in terms of how I thought about my own mum.
Yeah. There was definitely a very significant moment in having my eldest. When I was in hospital and people were visiting me at the hospital after I'd had my son, everybody wanted to see the baby. But the first thing my mum did was she came and embraced me. She did see my son. She saw him in his cot, but he was massive. So I have huge babies. And my mum just looked at me and she said, kind of held my face And she said, oh, my poor daughter, because she knows I had to birth that child. But her instant reaction was to look for her baby, not for mine. And that, I think, really changed how I looked at my mum.
But in your letter, you talk about this girl who was lost. And I wanted to talk to you a bit about her. Did your mum know this little girl that you talk about in the letter?
I would be doing my mother an injustice, but if I said that she didn't, because I'm her child. And I think every mother knows their child. But I think because we're one of 6, I had 2 siblings who were very, very poorly growing up. So my mum was not only spread thin, she had to give attention to the 2 that were very sick. Where my mum was gone for 6 months, 7 months at a time in hospital with my other siblings, my grandma would take her place. And actually, I think my grandma knew that girl. And she herself, as a mother to my mum, her looking after us and helping raise us was not just love for her grandchildren, but that was her love for her daughter. Because she had
her daughter as well. Yeah,
so she had to do what she had to do for my mum to survive. And that is a whole other love. And even now, my grandma, who is 92, legally blind, knows the sound of my knock on the door.
So did she witness this girl disappearing?
They were constantly surviving. All they did was work, save, just month by month by month. So I don't know if they thought about those things. I don't know if they felt those things. And if they have, I've never had that conversation with my mother.
Would you?
No. Never.
Why?
I just don't know if my mum would be able to cope with the depth of that conversation because again, I was raised in a culture where there's a hierarchy, and especially in a family of siblings, men were always at the top. So boys came first, then it was the daughters. So I have 2 brothers and we have 4 sisters. And the needs of the men were always met first. They had freedom, they could socialize, they could be educated. Whereas for girls, I think, for me, when I was growing up, I worked really hard, did my A-levels, was meant to go to university. And my mum was like, absolutely no way you're not going to university. Because for her, she was like, you're a girl, you need to get married. Whereas my brother, many years later, was able to go to university, no questions asked. So I think in order to have a open conversation with my mother, I'd want that hierarchy to be broken first. And I would want to be up there with my brothers.
That's so interesting. So in terms of this little girl that you feel was lost, could you tell me about her and what happened to her?
I've always been a dreamer. I could be in history and we could be talking about a president. And then I'll sit there and I'll be like, that's what I want to be. I'm going to become president one day. As a young child, I constantly told myself that I was going to be. And I suppose it's life's little knocks. And I remember saying that I'm going to become prime minister. And somebody said to me, well, have you ever seen a brown prime minister? That's that dream squashed. So even though I was a big dreamer, I was told consistently that I wasn't able to. I'm not allowed to. It's not the done thing. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. Our culture doesn't accept this. And I think the second I had my daughter, it wasn't even the boys. I looked at them and I thought, well, you're going to be fine because the world already loves you. Let's face it. My children are brown Muslim boys. They are going to have their own hurdles to deal with, but they are men. So they are not going to have to deal with the hurdles and the challenges that my daughter will. The second my daughter was born, I kid you not, I went to that scan and they said, you're having a little girl. Everything changed for me. Everything flipped for me. And I just said, no, whoever I am now has to change because I am not bringing my daughter into this world ever thinking that she is less than anyone. And if you met my daughter now, she is a force to be reckoned with.
And have you had this talk to her about who you used to be and why it's so important for you, well, for her to dream and, everything that you've embodied in the letter? Have you spoken to her about it?
We have our time, so we sit down and we sit down and talk to her. And it could be the most mundane, the most everyday stuff. And then somehow those conversations lead to bigger things. That might be me instilling confidence in her about something that she's worrying about. But sometimes the roles are completely reversed and she's instilling confidence in me. And she's like, Mom, oh my goodness, you need to do that. She will tell me. And I'm like, whoa, what's happened? And I think back to myself at her age, the dreamer, the person that was lively and bold was dying at that age. That I was disappearing. She is taking over the room now. Just because I was doing this podcast this morning, I sent her the letter on her phone, and she said, "Oh, Mom, that's so cool." She goes, "I really love that." And she goes, "Can we frame that and put that in my room?" And I said, "Absolutely, we'll frame that and we'll put that in your room." So
Amazing.
So yeah, what I don't want to lose ever with her is our lines of communication.
You talked about that girl disappearing at 18. You remember her? Definitely, she was gone at 18. Are you seeing her coming back? And
She's back.
She's back.
Oh,
she's fully back.
Oh, she's back. I think bigger and better, for sure.
What kicked that off?
What's changed is, I think there was a moment when I was really bad. So I suffer with PTSD and panic disorder. But what happened was, I'd kind of spiraled downwards. And my husband just said, "Look, what have you done for you?" And I'd realized I'd never done anything for me. Never. One of the things that I used to love doing was baking. So I would bake because it would calm my mind, it would help my anxiety, and I would feel it was lovely to be able to bake something and then share that with people and try and make connections with people while I shared the food. So I got really good at it, really good. And then my husband just said, "Why don't you just enter this baking show?" And I was like, "Yeah, all right, I'll give it a go." Gave it a go. Only went and won it. And there was a moment, and I didn't expect to win at all because I was on there with really amazing bakers. And then I got to the point where the day that I'd won, I'd done this speech.
"I'm never going to say I don't think I can. I can, and I will."
And the second those words came out of my mouth, I'd realised that I'd done something so big for myself. And it wasn't about the winning. It was about the fact that this was the first time that I'd done something for me. And everything changed from me from that moment.
Sometimes for me personally, I find the distance between knowing what I can do and actually doing it, I find that like the longest stretch. So have you been able to keep that promise to yourself? And how much grace do you give yourself when you're not able to?
Absolutely. You know what? There's like you said, the journey between I can and I will can sometimes be very short, or it can be arduous and really long.
Aside from being a big fan, I saw parallels between yourself and myself. I won this competition with the BBC to produce and host a podcast, which I've been doing, and I took an idea that was solely for my daughter. I was writing her letters, and I thought, this could be interesting, and I got encouraged as well to apply for the competition, and I won. And the podcast has done really well. This is definitely not where I saw myself even 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm doing what I love, but I never saw myself doing it. And I just keep thinking like these journeys from A to B, they're not linear.
No.
And I wanted to ask you how you felt about that, about being somewhere where I don't imagine that you thought you'd be here 10 years ago.
No. I was at the time, just before I'd applied for Bake Off, I was finishing my degree. So I was doing my degree, which I promised myself that I would do. And the plan was to go into social work. But I am a firm believer in God's plan. We can plan all we like.
He laugh.
Yeah. So as a British Bangladeshi a child of an immigrant, first generation brown Muslim woman, I have now suddenly, 8 years ago, I took up this space in the public eye, in media, in publishing, that I never, ever saw myself. I never saw someone like me on a cookery show, on TV. I didn't hear names like mine. I didn't hear stories like mine. Yet I get to sit here today and tell these stories that lots of people won't understand, but lots of people who do. As a woman sat here being able to take up all of these spaces that were never taken up before, I understand the importance of the job that I do now. And there is a affirmation that I've taught my children, especially my daughter, and it's something that we say in our house all the time, every day, and it's elbows out. And just the idea of elbows out, if you physically do elbows out, you create space, you make yourself bigger, make space for yourself. Wherever you go, make sure you've got space for you. And that's what I tell myself in those low moments.
I was going to ask what advice you would have for my daughter. And I think that's a good one to have. And I think it's just a really simple way to explain something, especially to kids.
Yes, totally.
And do you think your children are proud of you?
Yes.
And how far you've come?
Yeah. I mean, even though they're obnoxious teenagers sometimes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think they are so proud of how far I've come. But again, another bit of advice for our daughters, it's not about who's proud of you. It's really important to be proud of yourself. It's really important to be proud of yourself.
I was going to ask, are you proud of yourself?
Absolutely. I am so proud of how far I've come. But I'm also really proud of who I've become. And I can't wait to see the mother-in-law that I become and the grandma that I become. I can't wait, because I think she'll be great.
That's all I have. Nadia, thank you so much.
I really enjoyed this chat. I just want to say thank you. It was a really lovely chat.
They say that you should never speak to your heroes because they might disappoint you and not live up to your expectations. But speaking to Miss Nadia Hussain was amazing. It just felt like I was speaking to my cousin. She's so warm and funny. She's authentic. She feels like family. And a lot of the things that we talked about, I found myself drawing parallels with her life in terms of being in a new space now that I didn't imagine myself ever being in, with this podcast. And it got me thinking about the evolution of life and the evolution of parenthood, about how to acknowledge that things are changing, how to accept that they may be changing, whether you want them to or not. And I am parenting this little girl who's changing every time I look around. Every time I look back at her, she's changed again. And I need to accept and acknowledge this change, prepare for it, help her through it, and enjoy it. Next week on the podcast, I'll be talking to someone who's written a letter to her daughter about an issue that all working parents can relate to.
I felt guilty for not spending all my time with you. I thought that I was a bad mum and at the same time a bad employee for not performing at work as I used to do. I just couldn't win.
I'm so excited to be back for season 3. We've got some incredible letters coming up that I can't wait to share with you. And I want your letters too. What would you like to share with your own daughter or with daughters around the world? This season, tell me about your triumphs, a great decision you made that you're really proud of, or about a time that you found humor in a difficult moment, or about sharing a connection between the generations. You can send us an email on deardaughter@bbc.co.uk, or you can go to our website www.bbcworldservice.com/deardaughter. Or you can now send us a WhatsApp message on +44 800 030 4404. And please spread the word. Tell everyone you know about Dear Daughter. Show them where to find it, how to download it, and how to follow or subscribe. And leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. Dear Daughter is presented by me, Namulanta Kombo, and produced by me and Natasha Fernandez with support from Lucy Burns and Maggie Karanja. The editor is Claire Fordham. Mixed by Sarah Hockley. Theme music composed by Justin Nichols. Kat Collins is a BBC World Service podcast producer, and John Manell is a podcast commissioning editor. See you next time.